Now, of course, the biggest story that's been going around the world of the movie industry the last 6 months has been the impending merger of Warner Brothers with Netflix, with Paramount. At one point it was Paramount, then it was Netflix, and now it's Paramount again. But a lot of attention now has been put in place of like the role David Zaslav has played in this. And, you know, David Zaslav is already a very rich man, but he's going to be an even richer rich man when this is all done. As an article in Variety came out today.
Look at that.
Look at that. There it is. That he's getting like $500 million, $500 million from this deal. Now, of course, part of that is because when they restructured his deal, he gave up a bunch of salary in order to take stock options. And now with Paramount buying at $31 a share, all those stock options are going to equal a lot. Plus, as an executive, he gets a golden parachute and all that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing about this article, at least in the headline, it said he actually wanted to stay. He wanted to stay. And this was a really good article in Variety that I went through. Now, of course, you guys got to understand, I'm a fan of David Zaslav. Now, I understand that's an unpopular position to take sometimes, but like I always say, it's often lonely being right. But I've been a big fan of David Zaslav. A couple of things that I think people need to keep in mind when thinking about David Zaslav's era here, and it's pointed out in this Variety article, that once they acquired Warner Brothers, it had like a $56 billion debt. In just a couple of years, he has done the corporately impossible. He has cut down that debt by $24 billion.
Yeah.
That's like, maybe you don't travel in those types of circles. That's remarkable. In just that amount of time, he was able to pay down their debt by $24 billion. Also, he completely revitalized the studio. This past year, they set all types of all-time Hollywood records, including, 7 films in a row that opened to over $40 million. Never happened. They won their first Best Picture award at the Oscars in like 14 years, 13 or 14 years. They haven't won Best Picture at the Oscars since like 2013 Argo or something like that. He's revitalized the entire HBO as well. They got like a 10-year-long Harry Potter franchise coming. All that kind of stuff, right? Completely re-elevated Warner Brothers back to respectability, all that kind of stuff. So why, a lot of people rightfully ask, is David Zaslav selling Warner Brothers? And I've tried to poorly explain it to people, and Variety just came out, this is why they get paid the big bucks, and really wrote this article that is absolutely fantastic and on key. Cynthia Littleton is the one who wrote the article. And there's a lot in it. And I want to go through it kind of extensively because I think there's some really interesting stuff here, not just about Zaslav, but about the industry as a whole and how it works. Because one of the big things that came out of this is that while it was absolutely the plan to sell Warner Brothers at some point, David Ellison did not want to sell it now. And he didn't want to sell it to Paramount, but he's kind of legally obligated to. Okay, so here's some of the highlights as we jump over to the Campea classroom here. I want to go through some of the highlights here about this article because it's quite a long one, but it's a great one. I highly encourage everybody to go and read the whole one for yourself. But one of the main things was this, is that the sale was forced by Paramount. While Zaslav did have long-term plans to restructure Warner Brothers Discovery, the sale process was essentially triggered by David Ellison's unsolicited and hostile bid in late 2025. Once the company was in play, the board's fiduciary duties, that means their responsibility to the shareholders, and something called the Revlon rule, which we'll go into in just a second, legally required them to then put it out to see if there would be higher bidders, effectively taking the timeline out of Zaslav's hands. So you see, by Paramount, because this is not a privately owned company, this is a publicly owned company, by Paramount coming forward, and I believe their first bid was $19 a share. By them coming out and doing that, it triggers a set of legal obligations that the board has. And then that led to them opening it up, seeing if there are any other interested parties. And once those bids, they come in. The second thing you really got to understand that really is highlighted in this article, David listen, I remember we saw him at CinemaCon. The first year after he took over Warner Brothers and he stood on stage, all David Zaslav wants to be is a Hollywood mogul, man.
Right.
He loves the movies and he loves Hollywood and he wants to be a Hollywood mogul.
Yeah.
And that has not changed. He doesn't want to leave. He wants to be a Hollywood mogul, which leads us to this thing too. The article emphasizes that Zaslav did not want to leave yet. His original strategy, we know this because we've talked about a lot on the show, was to split Warner Brothers Discovery into two different companies, into Warner Brothers Studios and HBO, and then all the legacy networks, right? The Home Improvement Channel, whatever that was, the Food Network, CNN, TNT, split all that off into a separate company and then just stay on and head up the studio. That's what he wanted to do, which would have likely allowed him to remain as a CEO.
Man, that sucks. I mean, it's got to suck when you want to be a Hollywood mogul and all you've got is $500 million to show for it.
Yeah.
Bummer.
But what does suck though is when all you want to be is a Hollywood mogul, you take over this dead and dying studio, which everybody forgets that's exactly what it was when AT&T owned it. AT&T ran Warner Brothers into the ground. Zaslav took over this dying corpse of a studio, paid off almost half its debt in just a couple of years, revitalized, re-elevated them to prestige, just got them their most Oscar nominations and whatever, surrounded himself with fantastic people. You do all that and then find out you got to sell, because the article implies that Zaslav didn't want to sell to Paramount and preferred Netflix, but due to the higher bid prices, shareholder groups started to threaten lawsuits or replace the board if they didn't consider it. So basically, David Zaslav was in a position that he was not planning on wanting to sell the company. Paramount comes along and puts in an unsolicited bid, which triggers a series of events that has to happen that led to this. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Hims. I know a lot of us have weight loss goals, but actually hitting them, that's the hard part. Hims now offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill at its lowest price ever and the Wegovy pen. And when combined with diet and exercise, Wegovy can help you lose up to 20% or more of your body weight by helping regulate your appetite so you eat less. You connect with a licensed provider who determines if treatment is right for you, and if prescribed, your medication gets delivered straight to your door, no insurance needed. Plus, you get 24/7 access to your care team and in-app support like meal plans, recipes, fitness videos, and more. Ready to reach your goals? Visit hims.com/Campea to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's HIMS.com/Campea. hims.com/Campea. Based on advertised cash price for a 30-day supply of medication only. Membership required, fee not included, and billed separately. Weight loss by Hims is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information and restrictions, visit hims.com. So, Paramount eventually, let's bring this up, increased their bid to $31 a share. Okay. That bid caused something called the Revlon rule. Now, the Revlon rule is not specifically a law, but it's a doctrine in corporate law that basically says that as a board and as a CEO, you are legally obligated to find the most value for your shareholders and get them their most value. So here's the thing. Once Paramount increased their bid to $31 per share, as I go over this thing here, the Revlon rules: when a company is up for sale, the board of directors, I don't know why I have all this. I have all my CinemaCon stuff there. The Revlon rule: when a company is up for sale, the board of directors' primary duty shifts to getting the highest possible price for shareholders. So here's the thing. Once the $31 per share thing came into play, Paramount became obligated to accept it unless
Warner Brothers became obligated to accept.
Warner Brothers became obligated to accept. Thank you. Unless Zaslav could make the case, let me give you more space here, that they could achieve $31 per share on their own without the deal. So once Paramount came forward and gave that $31 per share offer, the only legal way without getting sued, the only legal way they could reject that offer is to show that either A, we can get that much value from another bid, but Netflix declined to increase their offer, so that went off the board, or show that within the next couple of years, we can get our share price up to $31 all by itself. And that simply is not realistic. There's a reason David Ellison and Paramount are going to be $79 billion in debt once they buy Warner Brothers. It's just they're overpaying, but they got the winning bid, right? And so one of the other things the article points out is that Zaslav really doesn't have a say. It's really all up to the board, who he works for, and up to the shareholders. Now, at the end of the day, in April, the shareholders can vote against this deal, but it's their company. It's the shareholders' company. It's not the board's company. It's not David Zaslav's company. It's the board's company. So to kind of summarize this, David Zaslav was not planning on selling the company. Paramount made an unsolicited bid, which triggered a legal set of actions that needed to happen after that, which led to an open bidding war. They found a partner they wanted to work with in Netflix, but then when Paramount increased their bid up to $31 per share, they simply had no other choice. And by the way, on top of all that, a couple of the investor groups who are the shareholders of Warner Brothers threatened to remove the board and bring multiple lawsuits if they didn't accept the offer. So, getting to walk away with $500 million in severance and in share options is a pretty good consolation prize. But it's just really interesting to really see it made tangible that Zaslav himself did not want to sell. He wants to be the head of a Hollywood studio. But this sounds weird to say, he's just a CEO. And there are more powerful people in a corporation than the CEO, the board, the shareholders, and there's nothing he can do about it at this point. Now, if he could find the right deal, maybe he sells it anyway. At some time down the road, he was probably going to sell it sometime later. He really wanted to spin off those legacy networks and just have the studio be the head of that studio, increase its value and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, Rob, I thought this article, we don't often talk about inside industry stuff on our show. We like mostly to talk about the movies and casting and directors.
Sure,
and
but
TV
this is
shows.
important.
But this is huge. And I just thought that this was, again, an excellent article by the people over at Variety. Well done. And it really kind of does paint this in a different sort of picture. And really the only ones who could have stopped this, besides the shareholders, who are not going to vote against this, because it's going to make them a shit ton of money, was Netflix increasing their bid. By the way, interesting thing also noted in the article, that out of the 32,000 employees at Warner Brothers, the article points out about 16,000 of them have stock in the company. They're going to get paid too. Not everybody, but they're going to get paid too, because their stock options was probably issued to them when the stock was about $10.
Yeah.
Which means they're going to more than triple their money. So anyway, Rob, you had a chance to peruse the article. What are some of the things that stood out to you the most?
Well, look, late stage capitalism. I believe in capitalism because I think it's the best motivator for human achievement in terms of it fuels innovation. It fuels all kinds of things. The bastardization and the taking advantage of capitalism because human beings are greedy is always a problem. The thing about all of this, I wonder what leaves Warner Brothers in the best place to continue doing the job of creating the kind of entertainment we want from them, to have a year like they had last year. 7 or actually 8 movies opening over $40 million at number one, and then 7 of those going on to great success. That's what I want. Is this studio going to be left in a position where it's going to flourish for the next 10 years? Now, as a friend of ours who actually works at Paramount said to me last week, this person is very fond of David Ellison and made a good point and said, as a steward of the studio, that David Ellison does incredible due diligence in terms of going to meetings, getting involved in which movies are greenlit. He has great notes. And I've heard this from people that work with him for the last 15 years. I think he has a pretty great reputation. I didn't realize how good of a reputation he has in terms of the business of how he really puts in the time. And it was really great to hear that about him. My only problem is this. There's a lot of redundancy. Studios have their own identities, and they always have. And there aren't very many left. And when you have two of our studios controlled by the same people, those identities, by definition, are going to become one, I think. Now, they also have to get Saudi money. There's a lot of talk about these new Saudi investment, different investors that are going to come in. Now, they're not going to be on the board. They're not going to be able to vote. And they're certainly not going to be able.
So they claim.
So they claim.
Yeah.
I was listening to a big story on this yesterday on NPR, and they say that they're not going to have any control over content. Well, I don't like the fact that there's any kind of exertion of force on American companies that create American commercial art that can be at all influenced by outside forces. I mean, it's naive for me to say that because everything can be influenced by money. Look, what I want to see out of this, I think it's unfortunate that Zaslav, his dream was shattered because I think he was doing a good job.
I mean, the results speak for themselves. Look at the year Warner Brothers had. Look at their streaming profits. Look at the awards. Look at the debt reduction. He's killed it over there.
Look, my favorite thing that came out of CinemaCon, one of my favorite things that we have not talked about, and I keep forgetting to mention it, is Warner Brothers has a new division.
That's
Warner
right, Clockwork.
Brothers Clockwork. That logo is redolent of Clockwork Orange, which is one of my favorite movies, a Warner Brothers film. By the way, the first Warner Brothers movie that Stanley Kubrick made. And Sean Baker's movie Te Amo is going to be their first.
Right, I just read that
He's
today.
the Academy Award-winning director of Anora.
Mm-hmm.
This is the most exciting thing for me, considering, I produced a horror film at Warner Brothers. I love Warner Brothers. I started my career there. I love that they've done this. And I hope that this gets to flourish underneath the new administration because incredibly exciting. I think that's what Warner Brothers needs.
I mean, I'll hope that if it does go through, look, I'm not going to lie. I am still very much an advocate for this merger getting blocked.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it does go through,
we've said before, we'll support it.
yeah, what else are we going to do? Just cry? I mean, if it does go through, then it goes through, and I, as a movie fan, am left with no option but to cheer them on and hope they succeed. I just hope it doesn't get to that, but if it does, I'll get on board.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, that's what I want. All I care about at the end of the day is I want to get great movies, and I want to continue to see their catalogs exploited so I can buy them on physical media. That's what I want. That's it.
Or Paramount gets crushed by that debt, and then Netflix ends up buying the whole damn thing for pennies on the dollar.
I don't want to see that.
I'd rather Netflix own it than Paramount.
Yeah, I'd rather see that.
I
too.
want Paramount to flourish and make great Star Trek movies.
Well, let's see if that happens.
That's why you need Netflix. I'm telling you.
All right, guys. Question is for you. Again, I highly encourage you guys to go over to Variety and read that article. It was very well written. Good job to them and kudos to them. But what do you think about it? What stands out to you the most? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.